Good morning. So I'm happy to present Dr. Kathy Edin. She will be presented on the effect of changes in U.S. policy on parents and parenting. Dr. Edin is Bloomberg Distinguished Professor at Johns Hopkins University in the Department of Sociology, Zanvyl Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, and the Department of Population, Family, and Reproductive Health, Bloomberg School of Public Health. Dr. Edin studies poverty by deploying ethnographic observations, in-depth interviews, and mixed methods approaches to the domains of welfare and low-wage work, family life, and neighborhood context. Prior to joining the faculty at Johns Hopkins University, Dr. Edin taught at Rutgers University, Northwestern University, the University of Pennsylvania, and most recently, Harvard University, as a professor of public policy and management at the Harvard Kennedy School, and the chair of their multidisciplinary program in inequality and social policy. So please welcome Dr. Edin. So again, she has 20 minutes, so I'll let you get started.
Let me see if that's on. This will be entirely different than the last session, which is probably why you invited me. As you know, I am kind of a big N ethnographer, but I also moonlight as a demographer, and I'm going to move between those two methods as I tell you three stories: a policy story, a cultural story, and a demographic story. So we start with the policy story, which is a story in two parts. The first part of this story is about parents of custodial children. And here I frame my remarks in the shadow of welfare reform, the 1996 Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act, which shifted the U.S. cash safety net from a need-based safety net to a work-based safety net, as the work of Robert Moffat has shown. So rather than one group, a uniform group of poor parents with children, we now have three groups conditioned by policy. First, the working poor who have custodial children are probably doing better than they ever have before, thanks to large and generous tax credits that families are getting about this time of the year, namely through the EITC and the child tax credit. So these are sort of the winners of the new work-based safety net. There is a remnant of children left on TANF. At TANF's height, there were 4.5 million adults on the rolls. In 2014, there were only 860,000 adults left on TANF. And because TANF has proved such an ineffective safety net, we see the rise of the $2 a day poor that H. Luke Schaefer and I have been writing about. These are children living in households with less than $2 a day in cash income. And I'll give you some sense of the magnitude of that group in a minute. So we see this story of heterogeneity among poor parents with children, where some are losers and some are winners. In the aftermath of the shift from a need-based to a work-based safety net. And I want to say a little bit about the TANF group. The 2.8 million kids on TANF are probably doing worse than they were in 1996 because the real value of the block grant has declined by 30% in intervening years. Okay, so we have this story of heterogeneity at the bottom of the income distribution, with a substantial number of parents with children having no access to the cash safety net, that's the $2 a day poor, or a very weak safety net, that's the remnant remaining on TANF, at least in terms of cash. And in a new book coming out in September with H. Luke Schaefer, I argue that cash is a critical resource in the world's most advanced capitalist economy. Now, might you be thinking that the rise in extreme poverty, $2 a day poverty, is not real? Let me assure you that it is. We've been conducting analysis of a number of government data sets, administrative records, and we've been conducting ethnography with poor families in 4 sites. What we see from the SIP is a rise in extreme poverty, so that at any given time, in any given calendar year, 3.3 million American children, 3.3 million American children are living in households that spend at least a quarter, at least 3 months, in a virtually cashless household. Now, is that number big or small? Contrast that to the number of children the EITC lifts out of poverty. that figure is actually 3.2. And of course, we have the 2.8 million children in America receiving something from the TANF system in 2014. Furthermore, Luke Schaefer and I have shown that the rise in extreme poverty is mostly due to chronic spells of more than 6 months, rather than episodic spells. So that's part one of the poverty policy story. Part two is a growing gender divide, really between custodial parents and non-custodial parents. It sorts out men versus women, but it's really about custodial status. Increasingly, because they're less likely to be custodial parents, men are excluded from the new work-based safety net, which increases the gender divide. As you know, they're also hampered by a criminal justice system that leads to felony convictions, but also through routine, frequent interactions with the criminal justice system that hamper their ability to stay employed, as we've seen played out some in the Ferguson case. They've been hampered by a shifting economy, which increasingly favors college over non-college, and they've been overwhelmed many times by child support obligations rendered higher than one might expect due to multiple partner fertility. So that's part two of the policy story. Now, the cultural story is a story we tell, Tim Nelson and I, in our book, Doing the Best I Can, out last year. And in 8 years of ethnographic observation of 110 men, black, white, living in the Philadelphia, Camden metropolitan area, we find that although a family life used to be governed by the old package deal, where it was the mother-child bond which was seen as central and the father-child bond which is seen as more peripheral, it was almost if the mother had to sort of tie the father to his obligations to the child. These men have adopted a new package deal in which the father-child bond is seen as essential and the father-mother bond is seen as peripheral. Now, along with this, we see a wholehearted embrace at the bottom of the income distribution of the new father model. We've found this, so has Jennifer Hamer, so has Maureen Waller, all excellent ethnographers. In this new world of masculinity we see among the poor, manhood is synonymous with fatherhood, and it's no longer okay to love him and leave him. Instead, what men seek, what they desire, is to be a parent and not just a paycheck. While it is true that families at this part of the income distribution are formed by accident rather than by design, and this is a huge difference across the class spectrum, right? About a third, the bottom third of families are probably more likely to be formed by accident by design today. Nevertheless, the news of an impending child seems to stoke a strong father thirst in men. And what we learned from these interviews powerfully is that fatherhood is now a key source of meaning and identity for young men growing up in very disadvantaged environments. So the result of the first two stories I've been telling you, the policy story in both of its parts and the cultural story, is that one, men, especially disadvantaged men, have perhaps never been more primed to parent. And that's a result of this cultural shift I've described. Second, there are a large subset of poor kids and mothers never more in need of fathers' economic and emotional contributions. And those are the families who have been left out of the shift to the need-based, work-based safety net. Third, fathers have perhaps never been less able to fulfill at least their economic roles. So now I'm going to turn to the demographic story. And again, this is not, I'm not claiming causality here. The causal story is very complex. In fact, I don't think we've figured it out yet. But with all that I've described to you, we've also seen in recent years the rise of the unstable, complex family. Laura Tack and I have been writing about this. She's a sociologist at Cornell University for the last 6 or 7 years, in which we see men parenting across multiple households and women parenting across multiple partners. The prior speaker mentioned the single mothers. I often like to say there are no single mothers. if you look at the Fragile Families and Child Wellbeing data and look at the first 5 years of a child's life, only 4% of children experience a stably single parent over those first 5 years. There are no single mothers. Instead, what we see is fathers and mothers moving from partner to partner, having children along the way. And what is the result is a unique pattern of highly unstable, highly complex family life that is unique in U.S. history, and it is unique to us among other rich nations. So how do fathers respond? They tend to satisfy their father thirst through serial selective fatherhood. So men with multiple partner fertility are rather rarely either saints or deadbeats. When we look at them in the NLSY, what we see is that they're often both. So Laura Tack and I have found, for example, that if you ask men, tell me about your pattern of involvement with the child you are most involved with, what they'll tell you is that 85% of them are involved intensively with at least one of their biological children. But if you ask those same men, tell me about the child you are least involved with, fully 50% will tell you that they're either only rarely involved or not involved at all with another of their biological children. So to flesh this out, let me tell you the story of David Williams. He's a father in Philadelphia. Currently, he sells newspapers at the base of the Ben Franklin Bridge and does day labor. He's currently the father of a one-year-old named Jules, who he loves very much, and describes in rich detail how beautiful Jules' birth is, how he came out of his mother spinning like a bullet, and how he just loves to hold him. And he and Deborah are parenting Jules together. He's also parenting Deborah's 2 children from a prior relationship due to their father being incarcerated. He loves coming home and playing with these older children, taking them to the Penn Treaty Park. So David looks like a saint in the context of Deborah's household. But David's got 2 sons, age 11 and 12, with another woman, and he doesn't even know their address. And he's got 2 daughters in late adolescence who he only sees if he happens to bump into in the neighborhood or on holidays. So if you look at David's behavior through the context of those other households, he looks like a sinner or a deadbeat. Now, when Laura Tack, Ron Mincy, and I have examined 2 narratives, one in which dads are deadbeats and just don't want to come around, and the other claim, of course, by fathers is that mothers are gatekeepers and they're privileging their current partners over their past partners and pushing biological dad aside when social dad comes along. When we try to adjudicate those 2 competing stories with the NLSY, what we find is more evidence for the swapping daddy script than this sort of deadbeat obligation overload script. Although both are going on, it seems that gatekeeping is very real from what we can tell. We can certainly see it in the qualitative data, both from moms and dads. And this is going to feed into a reappearance of my policy story in a minute. But let me say that the entire process of serial selective fathering puts fathers on a family go-round, where they sort of satisfy their parenting needs through serial selective fatherhood. And it puts kids on a father go-round. Now, many of you may think that it might be a completely reasonable idea for biological mom to push biological dad away. Let's say you were Dina, one of our moms in Philadelphia, and your partner turned out to be a cocaine addict. You met an electrician, and of course, you're going to give the electrician the daddy title, and you're going to push the coke addict to the side. The problem with this scenario, which looks good and reasonable from mom's point of view, is that the subsequent partner is no more likely to stay involved than the biological father, and a series of shifting partners can put kids at greater risk. Thus, I use the metaphor of the father go-round. The end of this process, of course, is that no adult male is left with a long-term obligation or involvement in a child's life. So here's where the policy story reemerges. I'd like to claim that we are in the middle of a modern policy crisis. Fathers' norms have changed. The new father model is ubiquitous among middle-class and poor men alike. Middle-class men usually divorce because they typically marry before they have kids. And for those dads, we now routinely give parenting time and often assign joint custody. So when these men are assigned a child support obligation, they're also guaranteed access to their biological children. What happens with unmarried fathers in all but 2 states is very different. When they're assessed a child support award, there is no automatic mechanism for adjudicating parenting time. Fathers are very resentful and bitter about the situation. They refer to it in strong terms, including the phrase taxation without representation, and they feel that the state is not respecting them as parents and only treating them as deadbeats. So I think I'll end there and welcome your questions. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great event.